Welcome into another episode of Discard for Magic. I'm one of your hosts, Aaron.
And I'm the other host, James or Jexic. And today we're really excited to have on AstroCosmos.
Hello. First time caller, long time listener.
They're here today to discuss the Filth because they're pretty good with them. But before we do that, I want to hear how you got into Summoner Wars and how that all started.
Yeah, sure. Just picked it up yesterday. Thought I'd give it a whirl. Here I am. I was one of the OG first edition players, so I wasn't online, so I wasn't involved in. I didn't even know there was an online community outside of they had a website and you could read back then on the cards pages themselves little strategy tips from the community.
So you never got into the forums?
No, I wasn't in. I had no idea there were forums. I guess I just didn't look around enough. I did play first edition with friends in person, so I didn't look very deeply for a wider community. Played that. It was one of my favorite games. My friend had me over. We did. The first matchup, I think, was Meldaria versus Grognak. I was Meldaria, got trounced. Didn't really care for it, but we played one more round. I was Krusk. Don't remember who I faced. Got trounced again, but I loved the Sand Goblins. Never learned them. Always failed with them. I was hooked. Bought it myself, and then when I heard they were remaking it, I was all on board.
That's cool. Yeah. You didn't get into community in second edition right away either. I remember there were some tournaments and everyone was like, who's this Ronin Wild person that's just destroying everybody? We don't know who they are. They even seem to play that much, but all of a sudden they're just doing well in these tournaments. And we're just like, who is this? And then even after you were on the Discord, we didn't put two and two together for a while.
Yeah, I had the separate aliases. I think because I know I played the app had an early release with the Breakers and the Cave Goblins, and I played that a bit. But the only person I was able to rope into second edition with my sister, so played that matchup quite a bit. I think I waited until it fully released and got the physical box. We played that as well, and it wasn't until months later that I did finally discover the community, and I think I was just kind of slowly working into it. It took a while.
Yeah, I just found out recently you haven't even played 1,000 games.
No, yeah, my eternal shame. I jumped in the first year, and I think it was the Beast Slumbers joined 2 years later, and he surpassed me in games played within, I don't know, 6 months. I'm like, I need to get at this.
Obviously not, since you're doing well. Because I think there's definitely a diminishing returns on getting good based on how many games you play. So I think you're already...
Yeah, and obviously Beast Slumbers just wasn't slumbering very much. He's just playing nonstop.
I do think my biggest weakness is I need to get in practice. So I was just mentioning earlier that I really wanted to climb the ladder this time, really get in on a season grind, because I've been meaning to do it for a while and just put in the games at that point. And I think if I do it one more season, I'll finally crack that 1,000.
I guess before we talk about Filth in second edition, did you ever play them in first edition? Did you like them then?
Yeah, they were my favorite faction in first edition when they rolled out. In first edition, my top factions were Filth, Cloaks, and Filth was definitely number one. I mostly played the Alliance Summoner, the Warden.
Oh, the Warden's so good. That was my favorite too.
It's so good.
I love
the Demagogue was great too, but yeah, the K-Filth with the Prism deck, so strong. I was a bit of a menace on that one. Oh, and I guess it was more of an Alliance faction. I also really like the Deep Benders.
That one was not... didn't click as well for me. I always struggled with the boost mechanism.
And then they made it a main mechanic.
I know, they were like, that's what we need in second edition. And I was like, really? But no, it works well.
They fixed it.
Yeah.
I don't have to unlock my units anymore. It's not paywalls anymore. It's just... No, the Alliance set was one of my favorite sets, and that was probably my favorite deck as well, the Cave Filth. A lot of fun. A lot of their champs were really good. Some of their mutants weren't as good as some of the ones in the original Filth, but if you were deck building, you could just swap them out and get some of the better mutants in that deck, and then it rolled so nice. And Soul Eater was fantastic.
All the champions were great. Spartacus, was that his name?
Scabicus.
Yeah. And Hester. I think Hester was my favorite, but I was also a maniac when it came to the prison pile and building it up and then doing big swings with Hester and then emptying it later.
Yeah, I didn't use Hester. Hester's my least played for sure. The champs were very good. It was a fun deck. And the Warden was such an interesting concept because in that game, you could only have 9 life. That was the most you could have. And the Warden had it, all 9, but the Warden only had 1 die to attack with a single range. Well, I mean, range now in the sense of like those were the odds. You hit out of ranged odds in the first edition of the game. Everybody, whether you were rolling next to them or whatever. But so yeah, 1 die for the attack value of the Warden. Wasn't very effective, but sometimes that's what you used.
If you were attacking with him, you felt like you were failing, but like, who was going to take down 9 health? It was great.
Health is so much.
This is now a first edition podcast.
That was the funny thing. There was someone who came in to second edition kind of late, and they were like, "Wow, Moldaria is so strong. She's got 9 health." They hadn't read all the other cards yet, but they were like, "Wow."
Yeah, holy moly. Yeah, no, Alliances was definitely my favorite box set. It did get a little fiddly, but I think I kind of like the decks that are a bit more fiddly, so.
Yeah, my younger brother's favorite deck was the Vanguard Vargath, and that was a really fun deck, too.
Oh, that was a good one, too. Sorry, Jax. Like, I think the only real big miss on it was the Tundra Guild.
Yeah, Tundra Guild was rough, but James knows that.
I mean, I've explained it. That was actually the one that I designed. I wasn't really around for the playtesting of it. They just kept nerfing the crap out of the deck because you could put Gror and other good things in it. Gror and Krung and all these other good champs in there, or Rukar, anything. People would just put it on those champs instead, and then the base Hogar ended up being really weak, but I think some of the concepts ended up making their way into second edition. The Ice Golem and stuff like that. So
Ice Smiths?
Yeah. Yeah, they're basically the Polar Dwarfs now.
Yeah. You just combined like Targon's deck originally in first edition with the Tundra Guild, and you got the Polar Dwarfs.
Yeah. You basically designed for second edition too.
The other one I designed was Natazga, and that wasn't an Alliance deck. That was a second. The fun thing about that one is that was the second summoner for the Swamp Orcs, but I had designed it before the Alliances had been designed. And it actually probably would have been better. It actually probably would have been better as the Alliance deck because it cared about gates or walls or whatever, and just getting stuff out of walls. And then I think the one that was the mercenary swamp orcs or whatever they were called, swamp mercenaries, that might have been better as the second swamp orc deck. But it was too late. It was too late by that point.
I like that deck a lot. That deck was really fun.
That was another one that I played quite a bit. Because I played it physically, and my sister her number one faction was the Swamp Orcs. Or the Span Elves. I didn't really get to play it as much as I'd like to, just because we didn't want to fiddle around with rebuilding things. But when I got to play it, I really enjoyed it.
I liked the event card where you could have all your Vine Gates come alive. The
Fen, that looked so cool.
Fury of the Fen. That was inspired by Macbeth.
That was a good one.
Yeah, I really wanted to get a hold of it because it looked so interesting. But the print run for the second Summoners was so short that I missed the initial release window when I finally went to my local game shop to buy it. There were 2 or 3 decks remaining.
Hopefully, some of those concepts could make their way into second edition. We'll see. I mean, there were 40 summoners in first edition. We forget that. And I think a shorter window at this point now too. So because we were just cranking them out, and they weren't as well balanced.
But they were fun.
They were fun, and it wasn't as the testing wasn't as rigorous, and we didn't have as many good tools. We didn't have the app, So we were playing on Vassal and trying to do real time games that way and stuff.
Yeah, that would definitely make it more difficult. Trying to get and record all the results.
I think we laid the groundwork for some of the concepts that made second edition good. So they learned from their mistakes and made a great game now.
Yeah, and I definitely think that there's still some ideas that, as you mentioned, they could pull from the first edition. I know when talking about the deep dwarves, the second summoner kind of comes up as inspiration that they could pull from whenever that deck rears its head.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of the summoners in second edition are greatest hits of the 2 summoners. Sneaks is mostly Sneaks, but he also borrowed a little bit from Frick too. I think that's cool.
Frick was so good. We need Runts back.
Runts.
Runts were fun.
Yeah, Runt was another one of the cards I had thought of.
So you're just saying you made all the best parts of first edition?
Well, I was really into cards that could, for those who don't know, who are listening to, who are just second edition players, but runts they didn't block line of sight for either side. So you could shoot through them with your own range units, and enemies could shoot through them too, because they're small. Their ability was called Puny or something like that.
Yeah.
Another cool card I wanted to make for some Alliance deck that never appeared, I kept thinking it'd be cool to have something that could essentially fly or be flown through, but would block line of sight. Something that, like a ghost or something that people could pass through, and it could pass through other things, call like incorporeal or something like that. I think that would be a cool ability in second edition as well.
Yeah, I think that'd be kind of neat. It reminds me of like the Wraith in the second Summoner for Sand Golems, but I think it only moved through things. Oh no, I think enemies could move through too, couldn't they? Or they could ignore it, or
Oh, so maybe they did make something like that.
love to see it come back.
Yeah, maybe I could definitely see runs coming back in some form or another, and for some other faction.
I feel like runs are criminally missing. They're such a simple and straightforward design. There's no reason they haven't made it back.
It's on an earlier podcast I said that I came up with clingers, but I think that's kind of wrong. I think Colby came up with the idea of a clinger, but it could originally move, and I was like, what if we made it so they can't move on their own, and that'll make them more interesting. And that's what Frick's deck was. Because my idea when I was designing some of the commons for Frick's deck was that like these are the people who didn't make it into Sneak's deck. It's like second summoner is the second string cave goblins turn into a strong fighting force because they're goblins and they have the will to do it.
You got the best goblin units out of it, so.
And I like the idea of everything being like having a weakness and a strength at the same time. The champion Dibs was like that too, where it rolled extra dice against champions, but champions rolled extra dice against it too, I think, or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that was just kind of a fun idea. All three of the champions in second edition for Cave Goblins have sort of like these negative abilities, but
should we jump into the filth?
We should, or we're going to run out of time. We got to talk about Filth
Right.
in second edition.
Astro, why don't you start us off by giving some key tips for someone who's starting out playing the filth, and what tips would you give them?
Right. I would probably say like a overall general view of the Filth is that they're kind of what I describe as a tempo deck. You're not really going to win on econ with them because they're always kind of sacrificing their own units, and like every common kind of costs 2 cards, so you're going to burn through it really quickly. So what I generally find is the most effective way is just keep in mind that you're on a bit of a timer. You want to take control of the tempo of the game, on really be the one who's driving the pressure. So half your 3/4 of your commons are all 0-costers, so you can play them like a more aggressive, more consistent, perhaps, cave goblins, and that's generally the approach I take. They're also similar to cave goblins in that they don't have a very strong range game. What I usually am doing is I'm looking to either get a hold of the mid board early on, or even just invade the enemy space, and just try to overwhelm them with spooky mutants before your deck runs out.
You mentioned the commons. In general, are there any must-play units or units you always play?
The cultists are all 0-costers, so it's really hard not to play all of them. Now, I would say, like, as a really more advanced tip, if you're playing against people who will card count, that you should discard maybe 1 or 2, so they never quite know what you've got in your hand. But otherwise, especially if you're starting out, just slap those cultists on board. Even if you aren't going to be using them, I will often park a cultist like behind my gates, out of range, so they're not going to get destroyed, but they can be mutated into something later. If they're too far back, they're probably not going to get into the action unless you get them in as a winged mutation, but otherwise, hit them on the board, get them running at your opponent's face. There's still 2/2s, unless it's the Anointed, which, it's got a bit more health, so they can trade fairly well depending on the matchup. And hopefully some survive that you can mutate. The cultists are definitely ones that you want to be getting on the board. In terms of, I guess we should talk about the mechanic of the Filth. The mutants can be cards that you have to summon onto one of your cultists or another mutant, but they are generally stronger than a normal common that they'd compare to. And in terms of like must plays on them, I kind of see the deck itself as a toolbox deck, so they've got answers for just about anything. It's a matter of like finding it and being able to leverage that tool in the best situation. In that sense, there's not really one card I would say that must be played, but it's usually finding what your opponent's weakest against. So the cave goblins, because they just keep coming up in this conversation, they're really going to hate seeing the bursting mutant or the spew mutant, as that auto damage will chew through their low health really quickly. Other decks like the Vanguard, who have low strength, are probably not going to like the Horror Mutant, especially since they're mostly melee, and it'll stick around at least the one turn you summon it, so you can always mutate it. And I guess getting back to general tips, one of the things you really want to do is push as much value as you can from your units. So anything you can get that will take a hit but survive, so you can mutate it and kind of get a free heal on it, is where you claw back a lot of your economic advantage.
The Claw Mutant, a throwback.
Yeah.
The Filth are a very unique faction, like you were saying there, that they're kind of like the Swiss Army knife of Summoner Wars because they have the right tools for like every situation, basically. It depends if you found the right mutants or not, but like some of their other cards help with that aspect, and you just got to use the right mutants for every matchup and it should help you out.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I would recommend that beginners try to just throw their hand on the board like cave goblins, because as you mentioned, finding the tool is one of their major weaknesses. Like, you might really need that winged mutant in order to get an assassination or apply pressure on the back line, but it could be one of the last cards in your deck. So either you have to dig for it by just throwing down your hand, getting that card draw going, or you'll have to hopefully stumble into one of your volatiles. I guess we'll talk about events later, but like, it kind of sucks having to use a volatile just specifically to find one of the mutants you need, because I generally like to hold it for getting damage on the summoner. You do what you have to do in order to kind of scramble back, control the game.
We can move on to that then. We can talk about events. How do you approach all of their events? And we can go one by one and whatever order you please.
I mean, I mentioned I listen to the podcast all the time. So in terms of the events, I generally see the event suite as a whole on the lower end for factions. If you're looking for things to discard, if your events aren't immediately playable, you can probably make them into Magic, just because you need to be hitting certain Magic breakpoints at the end of your turn, so you can have specific threats your opponent needs to respond to. Starting off with like the events. First one is Shield of the Hopeful. I think I play it more than I see a lot of other people play it, but that one really helps to protect your cultists. There are two board states I'll play the Shield of the Hopeful. Either all I've got is cultists on the board, I'm doing some strat with the Incanter Mutant, or it's the only options I've left for the opponent to really hit are a couple of cultists. And I might even hold on to this one if I think I'll get that turn on my next round. But otherwise, if those situations aren't there, it can just kind of be turned into Magic. Another one is Horrify. A common theme with all of them is that they're very situational. It blocks melee comms and champions from hitting your summoner. So if you are pushing up, which you probably should be pushing up with a Demagogue, it's really good to lock down a lot of positions and keep things safe. But once again, if that one isn't going to be useful on that turn, make it into Magic. And what's the last one? Zeal.
Yeah, Zeal.
Zeal's sometimes, I want to say maybe half the time, used just for that extra boost because you can surprise people. I have famously held on it in order to have a surprise extra boost to pull out a mutant that my opponent wasn't waiting for, but I think that's more like a high level bluff. Otherwise, yeah, I've also seen some people have great plays in getting 4 or 5 destructions of units in order to get the Demagogue into position for a final kill on the Baron. I think it was the one game that comes to mind. I think it was Ciabatta versus
me.
Versus you. Yeah.
Yep.
Highlight replay.
I think I am the most famous victim of Zeal. Ciabatta killed 4 or 5, maybe even more units of a couple of his own, several cultists that I had out there, and just continually move all the way around 7 spaces, including 2 for movement. Get to the Baron 7 spaces.
Yeah, he went on a journey.
Yeah. I thought the Baron was safe, but nope. No way, Jose. The Baron was not safe. I felt really good about that game.
It was going good until it wasn't.
Like your famous Ice Ram loss against Donkey?
Yeah, oh my goodness. I felt so good about that game. I had 3 max boost Lionesses out, and a couple Rhinos. Donkey's I don't care. I'm going to double Glacial Shift Ice Ram Abuashi from 8 or 9 health down to 0. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, the kids these days do not understand what was like back in the day with that first Ice Ram. Holy moly.
Yeah, they don't understand the pain. We should have a tournament that reverts everything before errata just so people can understand the pain.
Yeah.
I've often thought it'd be interesting to face those decks off against deck built decks that use legal stuff now and just see what happens.
Yeah.
Maximum mayhem.
Like old Polar Dwarves versus a Brub deck or something.
Yeah. That'd be fun. Get Joe on the line.
The kind of thing you could just do in person with like no issue, you know?
True.
Yeah.
The one time I dipped my toes into the deck building, I think I ran into you and I got brubbed. So always relevant.
I still want Joe to bring out badges for like surviving a brub attack or something like that.
I feel like there could definitely be more badges for random things. There should be a badge for beating someone who has the Colby badge. So like a Colby Avenger or something like that.
Oh yeah, like I've seen those called before, like a virus type badge.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, because Kobe doesn't stream anymore.
And he doesn't play enough. So that Colby badge is hard to get,
Yeah.
even though it's not hard to get, you know?
Jeez.
Damn.
He doesn't listen to the podcast. It's fine.
He only stars on it.
I mean, it is true. He doesn't listen to the podcast, but
He appreciates what we do. I think Joe might listen to the podcast, so Joe might tell him that I'm talking smack, but we'll see.
It'll be our secret, Joe.
yeah, I think part of the problem was we all went so hard at Colby with we wanted that badge. And
Yeah, Kobe started off really keen and excited to stream, and then after like several weeks, he's like, "All I'm doing is losing."
yeah, he had a good record to begin with too, and
Yeah, and then you guys showed up.
I brought in maxed out OP fungal dwarves against him. Jeez.
The funny thing is that like he had a decent number of viewers. He just didn't think it was a decent number of viewers. You know, he'd regularly have like probably 20, 30 people on.
Yeah.
For like just starting out. He's like, I want more. It doesn't seem to be economically viable for my time. Anyway, what were we up to? Filth. Yes.
Back to the filth.
Talk about Volatile Flesh. I think that's the last event.
Oh,
and
right.
Probably the most important event. Yeah.
Yeah, so Volatile Flesh, their epic, is rightfully so the epic because it lets you search for your tool, and it also gives you a ability to attack twice from one space during the attack phase. So I did kind of touch on it earlier. I like to really hold on it in order to get those assassination hits, or at least hit down the enemy summoner and get them into a critical threat range, because as we discussed, the toolbox nature of the Filth makes it really hard for your opponent to plan around all your different contingencies. So if you get them down to like 7 or lower health, then they're going to start playing more inefficiently, which once again helps you recover your economic quote-unquote disadvantage. Generally, that's how you'll be squeezing out wins. You don't necessarily need to get it the final blow with a volatile, but getting both on the summoner is usually going to cinch you the victory. Getting one on them is fairly critical to your victory path. So I wouldn't ever discard Volatile Flesh. There's never really a situation you'd either want to discard it. So it's one that I would hold on to for multiple turns. It's pretty epic, pretty good. It also gives you one cost discount, which is relevant.
You can surprise people with like summoning it. You could be on one magic and then summon a good mutant and then hit them with like horror or bursting or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and I kind of touched on it briefly. I was a mentor for Eden Shoutout, his live league, and I often discuss with my mentees with the deck you're playing, there's usually a certain amount of magic that you want to end your turn on in order to maximize your options for your draws for your next turns and to maximize the threats that your opponent have to play around. For the Filth, you're looking for those odd numbers, either 3 or 5. 3 lets you basically play any mutant you draw, because there are 2 champions that are mutants, so they fall under the same rules. And if you've got a volatile, that means you can get 2 mutants out. Otherwise, it opens up your options, and then 5 just lets you do it at a greater level, so you can get 2 mutants out, or you can get a mutant and a champion. Those are kind of the magic numbers if starting out that you want to be looking for, and you're probably either looking to get up to that either through bounties generated that turn or through your discards. And volatile is the big reason for.
But you're missing out on one of the odd numbers, which is 7. That's an important number for them too.
Right.
Very important number.
7 is what you're always building towards. So I guess we could kind of just jump into it. Well, one of the highlights of playing the Filth is the Abomination, who makes a glorious return from first edition. I think you are legally obligated to scream his name every time you roll his dice. I think that was on the website back in the day. And yeah, he's 7 magic. You do want to get up there. You do want to get him onto the board. I think he's one of those champions that's somewhat rare in this game that is kind of a must play, which I can already imagine some people in the Discord are raising their hackles against. But he is a central feature for the deck. Even just like the threat of him. It's not like Watui, who will show up and just immediately wreck people's faces and win games because he does have a long windup. I guess for anybody who doesn't know, the Abomination is 7 magic, 11 health, and 1 strength. But each turn you can add a mutation under him to increase his strength, heal a health, and then you also get the mutant's ability. And getting him up to a high attack value, so getting 3, 4, or more mutations under him, makes him into the monster that people are rightfully afraid of now. But it does take multiple turns. So the first indicator that your opponent has to react is seeing you build up to 7. They have to be expecting it because there's really no other reason for you to be up at 7. And then once it hits the board, it will take 2 or 3 more turns for him to kind of come online before he starts being a menace. Good champion.
Yeah, it's really fun.
I think what they did with the Abomination in this Filth, like the first Abomination in first edition was fun, and like having the randomness of like the dice.
It was kind of bad.
It was interesting, but like the thematic presence of this Abomination is so cool. How it actually like gains all the abilities and like actually becomes this giant abomination that is very tough to deal with. And it starts out not great with the 1 attack, like almost no ability to use, and then slowly and surely you can build it up into the scariest unit in the game.
Yeah, I mean, once you roll them with like tentacle, bestial, and spew or some winged mutant,
Yeah,
that kind of
flying
stuff.
around with wing mutant, and just only put bursting on the Abomination.
Talk about how you have to yell Abomination. There was one fun story I had with Abomination from first edition. There was a player who's been to Gen Con a few times recently, isn't very active on the Discord. Their name was Esper, and real name was AJ. What AJ did in the final of a tournament, base deck tournament, I think it was, with the Filth against Krusk. AJ was winning, but he brings Abomination up against a full health Krusk, yells Abomination, gets a 6 on the number of dice, and gets all 6 hits. One-shots Krusk. That's my favorite tournament moment ever.
You're legally obligated to shout it.
So I was just running the tournament on that one. I was just like organizing it. It was just so funny. I had to I was like, that's the best way to end a tournament.
That's perfect.
But anyway, okay, you were saying, and I probably ruined it again. I'm sorry, Astro.
Oh no, I remember this one. The build-a-beast nature of the Abomination is definitely a kind. Aaron kind of touched on it. It's very thematic, but it's also really fun because there is kind of a mini game each time you summon him about how to maximize his value and usability for that game. The typical things you want to get on him, but the order kind of matters. Bursting Mutant, and personally, I don't think Horror Mutant are the best for him, but some combination of the others is usually where you want to go to, but how you order it is going to really impact your game.
The other funny thing I've found when playing against the Abomination is sometimes I'll avoid killing certain mutants if I don't want Abomination to get that ability.
Oh yeah.
They already have winged mutant out. I'm not killing it.
Yeah. that needs to go under him, and the Filth player does not want to spend money to get to like self-destroy the mutant to get it under him. Especially when winged is like halfway across the board and you're not getting a boost from it.
Yeah, another one that's really important to get on Abomination real fast is Bestial. I had a game recently where I didn't kill Bestial for a little bit, hoping that it would not go under the Abomination. So
that one's a little harder because if it's alive, it's probably still generating the boost.
Yeah. Well, it depends on the situation. A Bestial is an important one to get under Abomination because of that generation of the boost. So if you're starting your Abomination out and you can get some easy kills, Bestial is going to help you get the rest of the mutants on that.
Yeah, Bestial I think is kind of important to get on the Abomination. Generally speaking, a deal situation, Bestial's not the first one I'll throw under. I'll usually do like Tentacle or Incanter. The perfect use, I think, is getting Incanter under the Abomination. Incanter's ability is really strong, but a lot of the time you don't want to be doing the investment of them onto the board. And when you're playing Abomination, like you're usually spending all your magic, so the only thing coming out with them are more cultists. So having them come out at 3 strength while you start to build them up can really help you keep that tempo and that pressure on your opponent going. And then from there, once you're able to get Abomination to 3 or 4 strength, that's when Bestial's really strong because you're most likely to be one-shotting units and getting that boost generation going. Now, if your boosts are really low, you might not have a choice. You might have to just take those 2 strength swings and hope for, 2 for 2s to get it going. I guess we never really talked about the boost generation on Demicon. I'm very well organized on here. So he works kind of like Kaldak in that, is Kaldak 3 spaces or 2?
2.
Oh, so this is even bigger. Yeah, any friendly unit within 3 spaces that's destroyed boosts Demagogue, and then you can spend 3 boosts to retrieve a unit from your discard pile and add to your hand at any time during your turn. Pretty good.
Yeah.
It is very good.
And you've got the one cultist that when it dies, it gets a boost anyway to Demagogues, the fetid cultist. So those are just good for adding the boost. And then the other one draws you a card, and the other one gives the opponent a magic, but he's a 2/4.
Yeah, looping around back to the cultist conversation, I will summon every fetid. There's no reason to even do a feint with that one. You want to get them down, you want to get those boosts going. The malignant cultist, like the draw is really good to once again keep the tempo going, keep that cave goblin like burning through your deck ability going pretty fast, but it might be useful to pitch it just so your opponent doesn't know if you got that range threat near the end of the game. And anointed is usually the one you'll discard for magic, especially early on, because you don't want to be giving your opponent that extra hit of, economic juice. So if you're drawing those ones early, you're probably going to be discarding them or trying to keep them alive because you're trying to run faster. You don't want to be accelerating your opponent's economy at the same time.
And we had a question of, do you think they are strongest when they're passive, talking about the filth? And it sounds like the answer to that is no.
Yeah, I saw that question. It's just like, I'm not sure where that came from. I don't know. This is a deck I don't believe you can sit back ever with. You have to be aggressive. You have to... I'm surprised. Jexit, do you play this deck a lot?
No.
It seems like the deck that would kind of speak more to you because you are basically running at your opponent from the get-go. Right?
Yeah, I haven't played them as much. I can maybe give them a shot. Like, historically, I'm not as big on the dark decks, but it's also an instinct deck, so it's tough to say.
Yeah, like...
there is like a podcast effect where often after I interview people about a faction, I will try to play them a bit in open queue, so maybe I'll start giving the filth a shot.
I'll inspire you with all this first edition talk.
Yeah, because there'll be like a couple weeks where I will know more about the filth than the general public.
You get used to that insider knowledge.
I think there is some aspects in some factions, though, that when you're playing against them, the filth can be very hard to deal with when they're more passive and laid back a little bit. I've seen Massimo play them that way, and it's been... But then again, that's how Massimo plays most decks. So,
yeah.
But they were very hard to deal with when Massimo was laid back and slowly poking. But it depends who you're playing against. Like, it doesn't work 100%. With every faction, but certain factions.
Yeah, I think you will get into passive play if you're facing another aggressive faction. Like, I don't think they're going to face check the cave goblins or like the wayfarers. They're going to come at you just way sooner because they've got the mobility. The only thing you have that makes you go fast is the winged mutant, and good luck digging that out to have any sort of impact in that matchup. So other aggressive factions will naturally make you play passive, but this is a deck that doesn't work very well passively. I will probably touch on it a little later once we get to their weak decks, but Wayfarers are a real tough deck to face because you just don't have the space to do what you want to be doing, and they aren't fast enough to really keep up with Celeste running at you and invading your space and punching you in the face.
I haven't played against your filth, but I don't have a very good record overall. But I'm 9-1 with Wayfarers versus filth, so it definitely seems like a tough one.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. My record against Wayfarers is 5-2, but I don't think that number really represents the difficulty of the matchup. It is a very difficult one specifically. A lot of these victories kind of came from Wayfarers being a bit uncertain in this matchup. I think once you have some experience with it as Celeste, you kind of know go in hard against the Filth, really hit them where they're weak and just apply the pressure to them. I think the Filth are kind of one of those decks that the Discord community kind of hates, and that you should be changing your game plan to address their strengths instead of just sitting back and doing whatever it is your deck likes to do. From reading people's replies, those are usually the decks that people don't like facing.
Should we talk about matchups overall? Do you think are their best matchups?
Everybody they're not weak against. The Filth are a really interesting deck. I know, we're going to touch on that later, but the community sees them as one of the best, if not the best currently. And on the Filth side, I don't get the sort of one-sided victories that I did with Crooks or with some of the other top-tier decks. A lot of the time, your victories come kind of when you're on your last leg. You get a lot of victories that way. So they're kind of decent against most decks, which I think is what kind of pushes them over the edge, but they're not overwhelmingly so against a wide group of them or even most of them. Like a lot of the decks are going to have some way that they can kind of face off against you, but it's just mostly how well are you able to adjust or fend them off before they run out of gas. So one of the one surprising matchups that sticks out to my mind that is Filth favored, because I played both sides of it, is against the Isle of Ekid. I haven't really seen Roko win it. Once again, it always seems close, but like I don't think I've seen the Lizard close it out ever. So I'm going to have to give that one to the Filth. Otherwise, yeah, a lot of them are fairly close. But if the Filth aren't weak to you, they've probably got a slight edge on you, or it's fairly even.
Yeah, I haven't played that matchup at all.
Yeah, I don't think I played a whole lot either. I have to take your word for that one.
I think it's because of their toolbox nature. Like it doesn't feel like a lot of the matchups against them are particularly one-sided, because it partly does depend on whether you can get that toolbox. And the other thing about the faction, it does have some very clearly defined weaknesses. There does seem to always feel like there's an answer, even if you're never able to actually get to it.
Yeah, I'm curious what my record is against the Filth. I don't feel like I've played them a crazy amount. Played against them, that is.
I've got 27 games against them, some against deleted players.
More than half of my losses to the Filth are Rokos. And then I did a brief stint as Balzar, which is my other losses. And I'm just not a good Balzar. Not to say like the Filth are heavily advantaged in that. I'm just really bad at Obsidian Dwarfs. But I do remember you had, who was it, Beans on? Who was the Cave Goblin? The Cave Goblin podcaster came on and was like,
yeah, Cave Goblin guy was Red Hawk.
where you had Red Hawk, and Red Hawk was like, "Oh yeah, I think he's good. They're good against the Filth." I'm like, I actually think the Filth are good against the Cave Goblin. So maybe it's even. I think I know where they're coming from, and it kind of touches on. Maybe we'll just roll into it, like the weaknesses of the deck and who the deck are weak against. The Cave Goblins can be the ones who take the driver's seat away from the Filth, and in that regard, they might be able to like get some lopsided victories. And you do need to know how to play passively or defensively to hold them off. I think with all the like bursting and spew damage that you can kind of beat back the Cave Goblin horde. But like decks that can either one-shot your mutants, so Swamp Orcs, or another high damage deck is Tundra Orcs, are a big problem. Recursion decks are also a big problem. Those are kind of the ones that stick out to my mind. If you can either like accelerate or exacerbate the economic disparity, or if you can basically take away their tempo play, then the Filth are going to struggle. And you can really feel it there. I don't know if it's on the podcast or if it's in the Discord community, but they're talking about how the Storm Goblins feel like they're pretty good against the Filth until Abomination hits the table, and that's another one, because Storm Goblins are able to both like take tempo away from you and also they've got a bit of recursion. I don't know if they'd be classified as a full recursion deck, but they're able to get a greater economic advantage against you pretty easily. And it's really the Abomination that helps to even out some of those matchups.
I mean, the Storm Goblins are terrible at dealing a lot of damage to one thing, so Abomination just kind of wrecks that.
It has been my experience too. Like, it does kind of, well, it wrecks your cultists if you're throwing cultists down, and it will hit through your Shield of the Hopeful. Really, no point in even playing that. They'll also kind of eat through your mutants. And as I mentioned earlier, like, you want your mutants to survive a turn so you can mutate them again. So you're not losing even more resources, as you fight for the battlefield. The Storm Goblin's like complete weakness to champions just opens them up to Abomination. And against recursion decks, like, Abomination is really your win condition. So Crimson Order, I think, is a really tough matchup for the Filth as well. And it's partly because you do have to grind just through layers and layers of vampires, and you don't have the resources to do so. Like, if it gets drawn out, you will lose. And the only success I've had is by getting the Abomination up and being able to get him on Daymar to finish him off.
Like I said, even that game that I got punked by Shibata, I felt like I was in a very good spot, and I felt very in control of that game. I think Crimson Order can be tough for Filth, but you mentioned recursion, and I immediately thought of Fungal Dwarves, and I feel like Fungal Dwarves actually struggle with Filth because they struggle with like converting Filth units into the carriers, and the Filth have a lot of like single high health units that are tough to take down, like the horror mutant or like 5 health on like a tentacle mutant or something of that nature, which is tough for the fungal dwarves to deal with and get their engine going.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned the fungal dwarves because they're never in the queue.
It's true.
So I can't speak to it.
I've actually been facing them a lot lately. I think Weaverism's been playing them and some other people.
Well, El Canella is always going on about how he's playing them, and I don't know. He's just he keeps Q dodging me, so I can't speak to that matchup. I definitely do see that one as being Filth favored. Kind of as you mentioned, Aaron, like their recursion does require or rely on getting kills, and it's I don't want to say easy, but you do have more tools to make it hard for them to get their recursion going. And because Kaldak is so slow, and you do kind of have a speed advantage there, so that once you do get Abomination out, you can probably win. I do want to play it because I'm curious about how the monster match goes down. I expect like it would be Abomination versus Monstrosity for hilarity.
Yeah, that can be a fun aspect, but if Kuldak gets hurt at all, the Abomination is so hard to dodge as the fungal dwarves. So
that's kind of the win condition in the recursion decks, is you just have to get the opponent down low so that Abomination answers your problem. Even Vanguards, I think, have a decent chance against the Filth because of that recursion. And if you aren't in the Tournament of Champions, I was facing the Vanguard player, and I almost lost it because I threw the Abomination at a point where I didn't think I'd be able to play it, so I discarded it, and then like I just hit the Night Tide portion of the match, and I was just getting overwhelmed, and it really came down to like the very last gasp. I was pretty much out of juice and would have lost like on the next couple of turns, sort of deal, just because you do run out of gas eventually with the Filth.
Yeah, another one I think that the Filth can struggle with is the cloaks. I remember the couple times I played that matchup, I remember it being a tougher matchup because the cloaks can sort of like dance around and do a lot of damage to a single target with like snipers and different I saw snipers a lot actually used in that matchup.
Yeah, so to kind of touching on like what to do against the Filth, if you can hit Demagogue, because he's like Kaldak in that he has to be somewhat centrally located, once you start denying him his boost generation, you're really crippling the deck. Another deck that's really strong against the Filth are the Breakers. If you play them in a specific way, I had the mispleasure of facing as Massimo just like schooled me in the Tournament of Champions when I finally faced Breaker. Another deck that doesn't show up on the queue. But if you're just constantly mind controlling the enemy units, not summoning any of your commons for them to eat, you generate like no boost. And without boost, you can't pull back any of your mutants. So when they die, they're just gone for the entire match. And it's very hard as Demagogue to like fight that, because eventually you run out faster of your resources, and then the Breaker player will just summon the units that they need to and punch you in the face until you're dead.
So he kept using mind capture and stealing your cultists? Is what you're...
Well, he'd steal like mutants and cultists, and so I had a huge economic advantage because I got to get all the bounty from that. But like outside of summoning my mutants once, it was a really hard board presence because it just kept vanishing. That's why I'd have to destroy my own stuff. I don't know if Sherez covered it, but like the link is out there if you want to watch me get completely run over. It's very effective. As I mentioned before, like the Filth have very clear weaknesses, which I think is one reason why they have the highest win rate in the game, but they don't have quite the same outcry that say the Deepwood Croaks had when they first released Fungal Dwarves, when they were kind of terrorizing places. Is one, the matches always do kind of feel a little close when you lose, and two, like if you do beat them, sometimes it's kind of like you just overwhelmingly defeat them.
I guess that goes to our next question. If everyone else says that the Filth might be the top deck, do you think they're the top deck?
I'm not going to argue with the stat. I know Kowloon likes to say that, the stats are misleading, and once people learn, like, they'll go down. I don't think I would agree with that outright, but I think there's some element at play to that. So I know one of your questions you like to ask is like, what can people do against it? And one of the things I do notice is when I build up to 7 Magic, I don't see an appropriate response from my opponent, like ever. So at 7 Magic, Abomination's coming, and I'll be bold. Nobody I've seen play will like build up a Magic pool to address it. So I'll drop Abomination when they have like 1 or 2 Magic pool, and then it can just kind of freely build up to a big scary level and then terrorize the board. I know not every board position is going to give you the leeway in order to address it, but the fact that like in the 80 plus games I played this season with them, I haven't seen anybody do is like I don't know if people are necessarily responding to the Filth gameplay as much as they should. But yeah, no, I would probably say if they're not top, they're probably top 3 or top 5. They're probably top 3.
Who else would you put in the top 3?
I would put the Shadow Elves. Who's the other general top 3?
It did bounce between Cloaks and Savannah Elves, but those both got nerfs.
Got nerfed, yeah.
There's also Sand Goblins are kind of like the dark horse top 3, maybe.
I'll be bold and say Wayfarers. Now, it depends on how you're ranking them based on like tournament performance and not generalized, but I'll say Celeste.
Yeah, I won't argue. I don't know if Watered listens to the podcast, but he would take umbrage with that, I'm sure.
Yeah, Watered would argue with me. He would just be like, oh, all you have to do is build the wall. The problem, this is now a Wayfarer podcast. The problem with the wall is eventually the Wayfarers will break through. Like, you can't keep the wall up forever.
And you need time sometimes. Like, sometimes they don't give you enough time to build up the wall.
Yeah, sometimes they just, like, have coordinate and slip by in their opening hand, and, oh, I guess you lose. Even when I have faced against the wall, like, they'll just shoot it down. A lot of the time, unless you're facing, like, the decks that are really strong against Celeste, you build that wall, but you're building it with pieces that aren't being efficiently used. So you're kind of hurting your own game plan just to, like, slow them down a little.
Like, that wall works really well with Polar Dwarves, who are known for building walls. It doesn't work well with Vargrath or Tundra Orcs, who don't really have any ranged units and can't do much from that wall's position.
Yeah, now you're just, like, feeding them units or putting your gate better positioning elsewhere in terrible spots that aren't ever going to be used. So, yeah, unless you're a deck strong against Wayfarers, I'm not sure the wall strategy is sound advice.
The one that surprised me that I think isn't easy for the Wayfarers is just because she's got such low health. But I think Moldaria is not an easy matchup for Wayfarers.
Moldaria, I think, is better than... And I'm not bringing this up just because, there's a recent discussion on Discord, but I think she's better than a lot of people give credit to. The change, I think, is more comprehensive than we give enough credit. I think, like, the biggest factor is it didn't address her worst matchups, but against the matchups where she was doing fine with, I think she's really strong now.
Yeah, I do think the changes made her very viable. But back to the Filth.
The Filth.
So you think they're too good? How would you make them bad? No, just kidding.
I wouldn't. Everybody just get on her level. I have wrestled with the question of how to nerf the Filth. I don't think they're that far off ideal balance. Any of my suggested nerfs, and it's not just because they're my favorite deck from first edition, now second edition. Part of the reason I love them in second edition is they kept their identity. Yay for that transition. I think they need a very light touch. So something really boring like -1 health to Demagogue, probably enough. Is it going to like impact most games? No, but they don't need most games impacted because their win rate's not that much off. I think there is room to do something creative, like the fact that their mutants are only a one-off in the deck means you could do something like in the first edition, a lot of their units were bad, for lack of a better descriptor. The cultists were flat out the worst units in the game. So I think bringing back some of that self-harm, like spew or a bursting, could hurt your own stuff when they blow up or move, could apply a bit more difficulty in piloting them and just like make them less effective in certain situations, which could bring them down a little. Or I guess if you want something a little more dramatic, you could make you to just fetch things once per turn. I feel like that'd be a bit heavy-handed, but it would definitely bring their win rate down.
Yeah. Another thing that people have tossed around, and I don't know how much this would change the win rate, and it is another boring change, but dropping Demagogue's attack value to 3 instead of 4.
I've seen it. I don't agree with it. Filth are really bad at ranged, and I don't want to say like the Demagogue helps even that out, but it does allow them to have an answer in certain matchups and especially certain board states where like they just can't reach anything. Because the thing with like the Demagogue leveraging his own attack value is that he is opening himself up, and as I kind of mentioned, like hitting Demagogue is a viable strategy to winning the matchup. So it's not like he's running around terrorizing the board most of the time. Reducing him to 3 Yeah, would bring the win rate down because literally any change will bring their win rate down. I don't think it would. I think it gets away from like what the Filth design is looking for.
The name of the podcast is Discard for Magic. What cards do you usually discard for Magic? You know, I know you've touched on it, but we can renew that discussion.
With the Filth, you do have a lot of leeway. So they are sort of a recursion deck, but not really in that you can pull anything back with the Demigog's ability. So early mutants that I draw, because you're not going to have the magic for them, you can just throw them freely into the discard because you're just going to pull them back when you do get the magic, or even mutants that aren't particularly good for that matchup, or that won't be good for the first opening act of the deck or the match. So they're usually really good to draw into early on. The Anointed Cultist, if you're getting flooded with them, and because if you're playing high level, you do want to be able to bluff what's in your hand. Your events, if they aren't immediately useful, except for Volatile, never, ever discard Volatile, even if
It's as good as the other VOL event,
the other VOL.
Volcanic Blast.
Yeah, no, purge that one from memory. Balzar is dead to
That's
me.
Astro's favorite deck.
If there was one nerf I could do, it'd be to nerf Balzar. I'll show the film. But yeah, never get rid of that one. Covers most of their deck. There are games where you will discard Abomination. I know I talk about it being like a must play, but if you are applying enough tempo pressure and you're being successful enough, then you probably won't have the gas to get up to 7 magic. And if you've got the upper hand and you can close the game out in a couple of turns, you will discard them. Just so you can get that finisher. The champions, Incanter, I love the Incanter. I think the art on Incanter is great, but the Incanter does kind of really require that you get a certain draw with him. He's probably one you're going to discard him and forget. Bestial, you'll also kind of discard if the board isn't open right. Oh, I haven't even talked about like boost management with this deck, but hey, that'll have to be another time. But Bestial is really important, but sometimes you just can't get him out, and you can always reclaim those mutants, so.
Yeah, I don't know if we mentioned it, but the 2 mutants of Bestial and the Incanter are also considered champions. So it doesn't always come up, but there are certain scenarios in which things that affect the rest of your mutants won't affect them. So something to keep in mind, just a little side thought.
Yeah, like Trampler, Dancers,
Yep.
stuff like that.
Yeah, you will definitely be using them to block the rhinoceroses. It's very matchup specific, but you do have to remember all the different factions in the matchups to know where that comes into play.
Oh, like Deepwood Grox is probably
Right,
one.
that was the one I was trying to think of. The Sears.
Yep.
Yeah.
Also for Vine-Mancers, for Swamp Orcs.
Yep. Oh, did I mention that that was a bad matchup? Terrible matchup. Holy moly.
Speaking of that, let's go into the Tournament of Champions.
Good tournament.
So anybody who doesn't know, the Tournament of Champions is a tournament that I run in which I ask a bunch of the top players. I think I reached out to over 100 this time. And I asked them to submit like their top 3 factions, and then we have the community vote on who should represent each faction, and then everybody gets thrown into a bunch of pools and battles it out until there's just one final winner and a best 2 out of 3 match for the finals and the semifinals. It's a fun tournament, very, very competitive. Some of the craziest players in the world.
Yep. Great tournament, low stakes, but just your reputation on the line. And if you don't do well, everybody's going to think you're terrible and, ostracize you.
I don't know about that, but
They like voting me in despite my repeated 2 and 5 and 3 and 4 performances. So.
Yeah, but they're voting you in as Balzar, so how much do they really like you? Actually, you nominate yourself, so really, that's on you.
I might have to try to take on a new faction soon. Maybe I'll try to become a good Drakesun Rebellion player.
Yeah, no, it's a really fun tournament. I had a blast with it. I thought I got a fairly rude pool, so thank you, Aaron, for that one.
a lot of people got rude pools. Fungal Dwarves got maybe the rudest pool.
That's true, but it's Fungal Dwarves, so they deserve it. They had their time in the sun. Now they need to wallow.
Well, you didn't have to face Bookish's Wayfarers, though. So
that's true.
That's one good thing.
Yeah. I didn't even get into all the reasons why the Wayfarer match is terrible. No, my pool was great. I did have the Crimson Order, thanks, and the Breakers, and the Fall Kingdom and the Vanguard. But I think my other opponent was a decent matchup.
I feel like the Fallen Kingdom is one that actually is very Filth favored.
It kind of, yeah.
If you play it right.
I'm a terrible player, so it gets kind of hard. It is because you are going for the assassination and you do have a lot of tools and you want your opponent to get down low, and the the Fallen Kingdom are happy to get Retalis to like 2 health. You are being aggressive and they can just kind of combo you. I thought I was safe. I wasn't as safe as I thought I was, and I almost got blown up, is long and short of it. They can out econ you just through zombie recursion is the biggest struggle. So you do have to go in and put yourself on in the danger zone. Just have to. They're playing around your combo and you're playing around their combo, and it's a very like it's closer than I think people would think. Off, it does rely on Retalis positioning well. Otherwise, he will just swoop in and murder him.
Yeah, your other 2 decks you played against were Polar Dwarves and Deepwood Groves.
Yeah, those are Filth favorite. Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, there's that. I always randomize the pools. There's always a couple people who just unfortunately have a bad go of it. Fungal Dwarves were, I think, the most egregious one this time, but there were definitely some tougher pools for different people. Of the 4 pools, the people that moved on were Being Easily with the Mountain Vargath, myself with the Swamp Orcs, Astro here, or Ronin as they're known on the app, with the Filth, and Lime with the Eternal Council, all having 5-1 or better records to move on to the semi-final.
Didn't you go undefeated?
I did go undefeated, yeah.
That's a humble way to just slide that in. I like it.
I wasn't going to mention it, but
I know, and spoilers for people who didn't know, I was offered the Swamp Orc, so it's just like, I'll take the Filth. And then I saw the like final options. I was like, oh, I should have gone Swamp Orcs.
To be fair to everybody, I offered a lot of people the Swamp Orcs. Like, I offered like 2 or 3 people to see if they want to play the Swamp Orcs. Not a single person took me up on that offer. And then I decided now I have to make the decision. Because I was trying to have somebody else make the decision for me who I should play, Swamp Orcs or Fungal Dwarves. Nobody made the decision, and I wrestled with it for a couple days. I like chatted with a couple people, and I was like, I think I'm going to play Swamp Orcs this time because Fungal Dwarves just have so many bad matchups. And then, lo and behold, that was the right choice.
Yeah, it doesn't look suspicious at all. No.
Hey. I almost picked the Fungal Dwarves, and that would have been a rough time. I'm sorry, El Canelo.
The tournament was great. Moving on, it was great to face Beans in the semifinals, and I oddly enough didn't run into much Mount Vargath like queuing, so I didn't quite know the matchup. And while the results look a little more Filth favored, the one thing that I kind of noticed is it almost feels like whoever goes first kind of has the advantage. So you're just kind of like hoping to win that coin flip at the start. They were pretty fun matches. I think they were covered by Therese, so if you get the chance, check them out. And when spoilers, won that match, I looked over at the other pool, was like, oh, maybe I have a chance of taking this. And the 2 options were Eternal Council and Swappers. So like, oh, these are some of the worst matchups for Filth. Well,
is Eternal Council really bad for Filth? I've not seen that or played that a whole lot.
I haven't run into it a lot, but yeah, it's bad. Adia she falls into the camp that can blow up your mutants so easily. Between Psychic Assault or Insight, you don't have a lot of options, and like trying to stick the Abomination on her doesn't help because she can just use those combos on the Abomination itself and blow it up, so then you're just completely out of it. So you don't really have any good ways to trade with her. I do try to like hit her as much as I can, but against really good Eternal Council players, they'll be able to kind of protect her long enough that she'll just wreck your board. Oh, and then on top of which, if you are playing too safe or passive, getting back to an earlier question, one of the reasons playing passive with Filth doesn't work is if you don't leave any good targets for your opponent to hit, they'll just hit your gates. And contrary to popular belief, the Filth do need their gates. So if those goes down, you're just kind of screwed because then you can't get cultists out to mutate. She does have a lot of strong answers. All she has to do is watch her positioning. So most Eternal Council players that I run into once, because I'm fortunately in the high elo bracket, once they know what they're doing to keep her alive, it's a rough one.
Yeah.
The only thing is I think there's not many good learn targets except for Zeal. Zeal seems like a really fun one for her to get, good. Though.
But like, she'll just use it to get the boost to keep her other events going. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it could be extra spaces too if she's like die assaulting through units.
She can steal whatever she wants, but she'll probably just like use it for boost.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess Horrify could be problematic as well. You don't have to play it. Like, she doesn't have a lot of melee stuff you're too worried about.
I do think that while the Swamp Orcs is favored against the Filth, I think it is like a winnable matchup for the Filth. I played as the Filth a couple of times in that matchup, and haven't won it, but I've gotten so very close to winning it.
Well, that's the thing. You feel like you're getting close, and then Swamp Orcs are just kind of like, here's 15 dice to your face.
No, it's not how it ended. Like I've had them go like to the very end of the wire.
Ooh.
I was ahead on Econ, like in the very end game, and then they went 5 for 5 with Blub to kill my summoner. They pushed up, Vine-Manced Blub, and got next to my summoner, went 5 for 5, won the game. And I was like, I had mutants on the board. They had almost no like units left. This was like they had no cards left. This was it, and I just didn't check that one spot. And like I could have still lost that one if I rolled poorly because Mug still had a little bit of health left. They had like one or two other units, so it's like. But I felt like I had a very good chance to win that one, and then I got blubbed in the face for just the 5 dice that they needed, and they rolled all 5. It is Swamp Orc favored.
Yeah. In one of ours, I thought I had a bit of a chance, but like, it's.
I thought you were going to win that one. It was very close.
Yeah, I should have destroyed the gate earlier. Is kind of it. I debated it, but then it's just kind of like, well, I think you could get Mug up to like throw 12 dice on Demagogue. So I pulled back, and I'm looking back on it. I think I should have destroyed the gate when I had the chance, and I think it would have just opened up that side. I always think of like, well, even if I win this, so we're just going to go to a game 3. That's still going to be a slog against the Swamp Orc.
Depending on the turn, you would have destroyed the gate. I had been sitting on those 2 Bog Witches forever. And so I was just waiting to try and drop, whether a bomb came into view or whether Demagogue came into view. I was like, give me one good shot with Mug and I can open this game up. But I feel like if you had, in the end there, if you had not put Demagogue up so close, I feel like you maybe could have grinded it out with the Abomination. It might have not gone your way, but I feel like there was a chance.
I thought about that, but then you'd probably just do the combo on Abomination. Once Abomination was dead, I had nothing left. So
Yeah.
I have 1 card left. It was volatile. It's like, ugh.
Yeah.
It was a turn where, like, you wouldn't have been able to get... I think you had, like, 1 gate spot open if I destroyed the gate, so you would have been able to get maybe 1 witch out. But it's just kind of like, I'm not going to sit here to puzzle out this turn because I'm not going to put that much time into it. A quick look at it, I was like, I think you could get on Demagogue and do a fair bit of damage, so I pulled back, but it's like, ugh. If you whiff, I might get it.
It was a close one. Both games were fairly close. Even the other one, I looked like I was more running away with it at the end there because I had a lot of units and stuff left. But Mug was like, what, 2-3 health left? Very low.
Yeah, I was trying a different strat in the tournament because usually I try to like do the typical thing of improving the swamp, but then like run out of stuff before the swamp orcs do. So it's like, well, let's just punch Muglug in the face and try for the assassination. Getting her low and getting her out of the action was helpful, but then you just had enough stuff to protect her that it could break through and get that last hit.
Yeah, I remember having to think about those turns a lot though because of the aspect of like Mug is at 3 health. So if I open myself up, you could volatile or you could get a bursting nearby and just explode things. So I was like, I have to position Mug very safe these final turns because I felt like, and this is what happened, like if I stay alive with Mug, I can win this game for sure. But if I leave myself open for even a slight bit or like misplay a little bit, then Mug's going down and it changes the game obviously.
Yeah, I thought if I could get a couple of kills, I might thin out enough your resources that an opening would open up, but then I had those useless whiffs. I was like, oh, well. Oh, well.
Yeah.
That's a rough one.
There were some fun matches.
They were good, yeah.
You had a crazy run with Filth in the tournament, only losing... You lost one to Bean, but Bean was telling me that was after you had beat won the 2 other ones, so I don't even know if that really even counts. That was your guys' 3rd game or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you lost one to Massimo, obviously, and the finals, but you won majority of the games with Filth and played very, very well with them.
Yeah, I'm not helping against the allegations that they're overpowered. Maybe I should have lost a few boards to keep them unnerved.
We've talked about with Colby and Joe though, like there still isn't like a clamoring for it. Like people still seem more upset by Crimson Order or wanting Shimmer Sea
And
Fae
I
buffs
support
than
that. Let's nerf Daymar. Let's ignore Demagogue over here. Daymar
No.
deserves it. Get another one of Aaron's factions in the dumpster. Like,
Don't do to Daymar what you did to the fungal dwarves. It's not fair.
who's your other favorite faction? I'm sure they need a nerf as well.
Well, I do think Swamp Orcs, which I didn't actually like when I first started playing them, and have they've slowly become one of my favorite factions. I think they are a strong faction, one of the strongest. I have been high on them in the High Elves for quite some time, and people I feel like push back on me for quite a bit. But I always thought they were around top 5, like maybe not the top 3 or anything, but I always thought both those factions were around the top 5.
Yeah, I probably put them in top 5. I'll be bold again. The biggest thing I run with them is they're just a brain burner.
They both are brain burners.
Yeah, I just in a tournament, I don't want to be spending like a month having to puzzle out every single match with them. But yeah, no, the Swamp Orcs are very strong, and I think the fact that they are so technical to run is the only reason they won't ever get nerfs.
Yeah.
same with the High Elves. High Elves are probably like one of the least popular factions, it seems like. You hardly run into them. People don't like voting for them for the league.
Everyone thinks they're great design, but nobody wants to play it.
I kept wanting when I was still playing in Massimo's league, I kept trying to get like High Elves versus Wayfarers because I think it's like a really cool matchup, and it's the opposite symbol one. If you keep looking at the deck building symbols, but I could never get the voting behind it to make it happen. I just thought it was a cool matchup.
It's a great deck. It's so well designed. I enjoy when I play it, but yeah, it's one of those where it's like you can't just like mainline 12 games at once with them, or you'll just die. Your brain will explode. Yeah, they're unfortunate, but yeah, I do think they've got unlocked potential. If anybody out there is looking to make a name for themselves, just become a master High Elf player.
I mean, High Elves,
Yeah.
even the top players sometimes just don't want to play them because of how much of a brain burner it is.
Like, what do you think like the toughest matchup to play is in terms of that? Like, like High Elves and Io Vekid was one recently in the league. I remember thinking that was a lot.
High Elf versus Swamp Orcs?
I don't feel like that's actually that bad. Maybe because I was playing Swamp Orc side of it.
I remember I also did High Elves versus Fungal Dwarves one time as the High Elves, and I was like, this is a lot to pick
Yeah,
up.
Fungal Dwarves is a lot. I feel like
Yeah.
Shadow Elves is a lot. Shadow Elves versus High Elves was an interesting... That one was in the league too.
Let's get High Elf versus Spectral Conclave.
Yeah.
Honestly, we just did that one.
Oh, how was it?
Not terrible.
Hey!
Did you guys finish your game? You were close to winning again.
No,
Yeah,
I don't
finished
think
yet,
I'm going to win again.
Oh, you're 6-2.
Yeah.
It's against Shibata.
Shibata and I are playing the final 2 games. We're down to like the final turns. They're both very close. Like, we're both out of cards in both games. Well, we both have like 2 cards left in both games.
So if you guys tied, you have to play
Yeah,
again.
if we split, we play again.
Now, what matchup do you have to do if you split?
Choose. So
One person picks the matchup and the other picks the
Massimo,
faction.
I don't remember how he randomizes it, but he does one picks the matchup, the other picks the faction. I don't even know what matchup I would pick. I haven't had actually to pick the matchup. I've always picked the faction when I've had tiebreakers. I only had like 2 or 3, I think, but I've always picked the faction since he changed it to that. But I was telling Astro before we got on that even if one of us loses both, that person then has to play Snicket for a tiebreaker. So unless one of us wins both, and that person can rest easy, but otherwise, one of us is playing a tiebreaker no matter what.
Oh, you might have to play a tiebreaker against Snicket to stay in Division 1. Yeah, that's a player who's kind of come out of nowhere, too. They were in the live league and stuff as well. They only started in season 22 of the regular league and kind of just rose pretty quickly.
They can only take second place, though. So if we play a tiebreaker against Snicket, I think we're obligated to lose, so they have second place again, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, there's been a number of kind of new faces show up and then just kind of make a name for themselves pretty quickly. It's just really impressive and nice to see.
I always laugh when someone from the community assumes that a new person's just a smurf. I feel like it happens every single time, and they're just like, there's no way a new person could be this good. You know how many people have never played Summoner Wars before that would probably be great at Summoner Wars?
And like every single player who's been one of the best players was basically new to second edition, except for people like us. And I'm not on that level either to win the regular league. I mean, aside from like Donkey, who just came into being, playing no games and just winning them all. Prophet started with like Sky Spear Avians and Cloaks around that time. You know, and Vexer came in later too. So like a lot of people just come in later. Dead Sands coming in later, and all these other players. It's good to just keep seeing new blood. So I guess it's Snalga's one, who's been around a long time. Snalg and Massimo. OL, yeah. But there's, I mean, at least half of the people that are up in Division 1 these days, like, they're new. Like, Run.
I think it really just speaks to, like, the health of the community, too. That's not dominated by a handful of people year in, year out for everything. Fresh, like, perspective and a new injection of fresh blood is, I think, healthy and good.
Yeah. Well, we should probably wrap it up. We appreciate you being on the podcast, Astro.
Thank you for having me. I was kind of wondering who I had to kill in order to get an invite. And, you know, I was starting to look up Bean's address, but, you know, a timely invite spared him. So
we'll let Bean know to lock his door.
But yeah, thank you for having me. It was a great time. I kind of wish I was a little more on track with getting these strats out for Filth. Maybe if they ever do get nerfed, there'll be a greater need for more coherent advice.
Yeah, maybe we'll revisit them.
No, I think it was great.
Yeah. I think you kind of mentioned it before about how the community's not clamoring for nerfs. I could see just the way Joe works, maybe some tournament thing getting rolled out, like how Abua for the longest while had just like 4 attack. And then that just kind of slowly shifting into what they go with because the community gets used to it from a tournament perspective.
Yeah. Maybe. Like, he might have something totally different than what we said. Or like you said, maybe just knock a life
Yeah,
off
if it were like that, it'd probably be something boring like Demogog down to 11 health.
Well, if you guys queue into Ronin, know that it's Astro here, and good luck.
My secret is out, been exposed. I mean, at this point in time, I probably should just change it
to something else so that people don't know who you are again.
I think somebody I think that even asked like why it was different is because I hadn't joined the community when I first signed up for the app, so I just used that handle instead. I never got around to changing them.
I'm queuing 2 Filth games now, so people will not know.
So when you hear this, know that you still have time to queue into Jack6 because he's queuing 2 Filth games right now, right when you hear it.
I'll do it every day.
And don't take my title. You can only do this, but once you get into the top 10, you have to stop. I don't want to keep fighting for number 1.
This has been another episode of Discard for Magic, and we'll see you guys in a couple weeks.